Analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of personalized investment advice, but are limited to the dissemination of general information. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the options presented. Encompass More Asset Management is registered as an investment advisor with the SEC and only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration with the SEC does not imply a certain level of skill or training. And Clinton and Galen are with us once more here this morning on Indiana in the Morning. GCES. Guys, good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
It's good to have you both with us here this morning. I want to talk about something this morning that might be a little bit different than we've talked about recently. And that, you've got your spending plan in place. You've been talking with Galen and Clinton, and you figured out, okay, this is where I want to go. My savings are where they need to be, and I'm just chugging along, and things seem to be going well. Then, boom, something unexpected happens, and all of a sudden you've got a really big expense, or maybe it's not even a really big expense, but it's something that has occurred that you're going to have to throw money at it, and that can be a scary thing, can it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times that people, life happens for everyone. Things happen, and there are times that you're going to need your money, and people don't really think of it, you shouldn't think of your retirement funds as your extra funds of money just in case you need it. That should always be your last resort. If your credit cards are all maxed out, you have nowhere else to go, it's time to start looking at ways to make your retirement really work for you in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Galen, I've put up a big brick wall and put all my money behind it. Nobody can get to it, including me. That's probably not the best approach, huh?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I kind of like it if you are putting so much into your investment accounts that, you're teetering if you can afford stuff on the other side, because you really are maximizing everything. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, some of these employers allow you to borrow from the plan while you're working, whether it would be a loan from the 401k or, a hardship withdrawal from there, where you can borrow money while you're still working, for those unforeseen events like Clinton's talking about, something that life's going to hit you with, so you can pay down that debt at a more reasonable rate than what a loan would be at, say, a bank.
Yeah. And obviously there are regulations that cover all of this.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming in Pennsylvania the regulations might be different in some other state, too.
Well, I mean, my big bubble is the federal government. So that's what I kind of relate everything to. Other employers do. The federal government definitely allows you to do it under certain circumstances. But it's there if you need it. Should you? No. But it's better than, taking a loan out, paying a higher rate somewhere else.
Now, every case is going to be different, and the expenses are going to be different that are associated with it. So what are we talking about here when we say a big expenses come up and we need to tap into some of that money that we've set aside?
So, I mean, just different things I can think of. Whenever people are going towards retirement, they will look at their bills. They might want to pay off their cars. They might want to pay off, their house. That's different from a hardship loan where, let's say your spouse is diagnosed with cancer. They're no longer able to work, and you have to pull all of your funds that you can to get them through the treatment that they need to get better. Mm-hmm. So it's more a hardship where, you're not pulling out $30,000 to pay for your daughter's fire hall wedding. That's not exactly a hardship. That's you choosing to use your money for that.
Sure.
Hardship loans are more things that you can't help, that you need the money for medical reasons, to take care of yourself or to take care of your spouse and family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So $5,000, $10,000?
Well, if you're doing a loan, there's going to be limitations. If you're doing a hardship, there's going to be limitations. Also, like in a hardship, like say with the government, you're not going to be allowed to contribute for 6 months. So you have to be prepared that there are going to be consequences if you do something like that. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what Clinton's saying. It has to be justifiable as a hardship to do it. A lot of people will do it for like a first-time home loan. And that's a different scenario, but that's a loan, not a hardship. Just in general, whenever I sit down with everybody, I kind of adjust where they should be. And it's not just the financial picture. It's also the health insurance. Mm-hmm. So the biggest thing that I like to focus on is, are you in the right health insurance plan? And a lot of the times people are putting in, buying the plan that's the most expensive because they think that it's going to be the best. And in reality, I can cut that down, show them the other plans. Of course, they need to contact their medical providers to make sure it works. But that right there could save them $100, $150 a month, which would free up money to put into that investment account if you need a hardship or a loan. Well, now you're funding more money into it in the appropriate ways, so it makes sense.
Yeah. When we're thinking about this, the word emergency comes into my head. That it's an emergency that we hadn't foreseen was coming, and all of a sudden, here's this big expense that I have to find a way to handle.
Yeah. And a lot of people, people know if they have their money and they've been saving money their whole life, they know it's there if they need it. It's not the best thing to do because you're still hurting your retirement. But like Galen said, whenever he sits down with someone, there's different ways to find places of their money. You're not going to be paying as much taxes in retirement because you're not going to be paying Social Security tax, all that stuff. So when Galen sits down with people, he will find ways to save money within their paycheck and look at their deductions. A lot of people have deductions on their paycheck that they don't even know what it's for, that they have a $20 deduction that they set up 15 years ago, no idea what it's going to. We can help them try to figure that out, but that's really trying to recapture all that money and make sure you're using your money in the right way.
Yeah. So I'm assuming as well, and again, if I'm wrong about these assumptions, just shoot it down. But I'm assuming that the circumstances will be different when you're talking about a 30-year-old who's been in the workforce for 10 years as opposed to somebody who is 60 years old and has been in the workforce for 40 years.
Yes, exactly. So, that scenario alone, a lot of the times people will pick up disability insurance policies thinking that short-term disability is something they need. 30-year-old without, 6-8 months of sick leave build up, that is appropriate. Well, down the road, you're 55, you have 6 months saved up, you've never used a policy, you've dumped $17,000 into it throughout your career. To me, that money would have been better put into the investment and used more wisely because you had the sick leave to cover yourself in a short-term scenario. So it really is understanding the employee benefits that you already have to maximize what you're going to have for retirement for the 401ks.
So either of those people,
Yep.
whether it's the 30-year-old or the 60-year-old or anybody in between, if they've not really put thought into this, and maybe they've been even managing their own retirement and just trying to go based upon what their feelings are and not really with any sense of expertise about it, they need to come down and sit down with you and figure out, okay, where are we and where do we go?
Yeah, and what you're saying is usually you're doing what your friend at work did, and it's not appropriate for your family because your family's different, your spending patterns are different. So really talking to a financial advisor, getting the big picture, understanding what you have and what your family needs versus what everybody else at work is doing is the more appropriate thing.
Yeah. So, and that's whether we're talking emergencies or not.
Yeah. One of the things and this is even slightly related, one of the things that Galen does sit down with, federal people, they have a pension. If you have a pension, there's a way for you to leave on half of it to your spouse, right? Where, if you take the single rate on your pension, you're going to get, let's say, $700 a month. But if you pass away, your spouse would then receive half of that?
Yes.
So $350.
Yeah.
I'm not great at mental math. So your spouse would receive $350 each month, but there's places that just doesn't work where you could save that money, put that money back into your pocket, and take the single rate. Because when would it not work?
Well, it all depends on life insurance and what you have and what you need to leave on. You have to take into consideration life expectancy. So, when I sit down with a family, I automatically try to protect, the spouse. That's just human nature to protect your spouse. But what if your spouse is 10 years older and they have health conditions and you don't? Should you do that survivor benefit for them? And then the reverse scenario, let's say you're 10 years older and your spouse is, 10 years younger. Well, maybe you definitely need to do the survivor benefit. So it's case by case. And everything that I just said, I've done this so long that I've seen so many people pass away and so many different patterns that it's unpredictable. So pretty much I've come to the point where I'm just going to show you the math behind it. Does it make sense how much you're going to pay out to leave on that benefit to your spouse? Because if you put that in life insurance If your spouse passes away, you can title that to a child or a relative. The money stays in the household, where on a survivor benefit, it's just spouse to spouse. So if that spouse passes away, you lose all that income, all that money.
We're talking with GCES again this morning. Galen and Clinton are with us, and we'll give you the number to call. And if you want to make an appointment with them, sit down and talk about your retirement or any of these topics that we've been covering this morning. Here's a specific scenario that a lot of families find themselves in. Somebody has to go and they're entering into a personal care home, a nursing care home situation, and maybe they're not even living in your household with you. Maybe it's parents, maybe it's brothers or sisters or somebody like that, a relative that you care so much about. You want to be able to contribute and help them. But here they find themselves in this situation. That can get very expensive very, very fast, can't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, long-term care is probably one of the biggest expenses there is, because you're having pretty much 24-hour care. You're at a facility being monitored, so it's going to have a big expense. And then you throw in the emotional aspect of all of it. Forget about the financial. What you're going through emotionally to have somebody in a care facility, it's going to outweigh the financial. So you're going to automatically want to do what you need to do to get that person comfortable.
Yeah. One of our future segments, I want to talk about folks that want to remain in their home and want to set that up so that they can for as long as they are. But that's a specific scenario that we need to get into in the future. For now, we're almost out of time, so we want to make sure that people have a good way to contact you, to make an appointment, sit down with you guys, and talk about these very, very important life issues.
Absolutely. You can just give us a call, 724-915-0000, or stop by our office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. There's always somebody in our office. They can sit down, get some information from you, and set you up with an appointment to sit down and meet with Galen.
Yeah.
GCES, that's who you're talking to, and they're right here in downtown Indiana, just down the street a little bit, right?
Yeah, just a few blocks up the street.
Guys, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. 24 minutes after 8 o'clock, and coming up in just a couple of moments, Jake Slobodnik is in our WCCS newsroom. He'll be visiting with us a check of sports as well, and in our 8:45 segment, we talk with a guy from Fox who's going to tell us, he's an auto industry expert, who says that, now there's an oversupply of cars and trucks and other vehicles. Yeah. All those vehicles that sat waiting for their computer chips, the chips have finally come in, and now the market is about to be glutted, and the prices of these vehicles is going to start going down. Good news for a lot of folks. 25 minutes after 8 o'clock, it is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com.
This, Boomer Esiason with the CBS Sports Minute, sponsored by WeatherGuard Truck Boxes. If it's a job worth doing, it's a job worth WeatherGuard.